welcome to another edition of the Amusement Warehouse podcast. We are here with the very professional-looking Danny Aguilar at the Delaware State Fair, who apparently has a massive studio there. It's a nice setup.
Thank you. I come with my own jingle, but yeah, we do things right over here in Delaware, Harrington, Delaware. So
Got his own
thank you for the invite.
You missed it during the countdown, but he came walking out to like a professional wrestler to his theme song. Very
the
nice.
fog machine's queued up, but I said that might be a bit much. So
as soon as Bill DeMondi left, you started getting your own theme song and everything else. This is crazy.
Well, subtle
Danny
changes,
is as of January 1st, right? I think you are the official head honcho over there at the Delaware State Fair, the biggest I think it's the biggest little state fair in the country.
Yeah, I tell you what, it is. I'm the seventh general manager, and it just shows the history and the traditions, and the Delaware State Fair celebrating its 105th Delaware State Fair this year. It's just an honor to be given the opportunity. I've been here at the Delaware State Fair for 17 fairs. This will be my 18th fair, and the opportunity to roll into the general manager position is it's quite the honor.
I just read you've been there 17 years. I was like, 17 years? That's incredible. It's like it seems like
a few more gray hairs for both of us, right?
I know, kidding. I got a little bit. I didn't shave today, but yeah, that's I can't believe 17 years. But you've kind of I think Bill's DeMondi, who was the former manager, did a great job of giving you increasing responsibility over the years. Because I mean, de facto, you were the manager in a lot of respects, where people came to you for just about everything. You took over just about every aspect of the fair, so it's not a huge transition, I don't think, taking over, because you've kind of been there already.
Yeah, and it just the opportunity, and it's really about the team here, the executive team and the management team here. But as most fairs, I mean, we survive and it's dependent on volunteers and with an 80-member board of directors, along with over 400 employees, and then other folks that contribute to making the fair what it is that we are even unaware of. We joke for 11 months we planned for a fair, and then we hand it off to a series of superintendents, assistant superintendents, volunteers, directors, in hopes that the plan executes. Is executed for the 10 days, and that for 105 years we've got a good system in place. But yeah, Bill's leadership really helped to develop the fair and a stronger business model, and really looking at all the areas that we're all faced with as private entities, nonprofit entities, and state entities. The fair industry and the carnival. If there's a synergy there, and we really need to work closely together to entertain the folks in Delaware.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and entertain them you do. What I'm curious myself, because I never really knew the structure, but I mean, you have a casino on the site, you have ice rink and all that stuff. Like, how much of that is you running it, or the fair running it, or what's the relationship, I guess, is the better question between?
Yeah, sure. In regards to the Harrington Raceway and Casino, we're majority stockholder, so we own about 77%. So it's really helped us from when earlier years when dividends were a little bigger. We reinvested all that into the infrastructure here at the fair. Lo and behold, now we're faced with 20 plus year 30-plus year facilities that requires ongoing maintenance. So it's something that we've always maintained an excellent budget. We do have an ice skating facility here on site. It's been here for about 22 years. That was built mainly for a 4-H FFA exhibit area. And then we figured, well, what do we do with this area for the remaining 355 days where the 10 days fairs were not going on? So let's say, hey, let's throw some water in there, freeze it, and then we can do kind of a give back to the community opportunity. And try to certainly turn it into a for-profit entity. But it's been a wonderful program. My kid skated for 10 years, and it's been a good fun opportunity for the community.
That's great. And the casino is definitely. Are you the only fair in the country that has a casino?
I think that Erie County has kind of like a casino set up. I say it's almost like a brother-sister relationship. The engineer that did the remodel up there in Erie had similar architectural highlights that we have here. So we kind of consider them our brethren, but they've got a casino relationship as well. I think the Indiana State Fair has a center ice rink integrated in with their facilities that they convert over as well. So it's pretty interesting when you can kind of cross pollinate operational
Mhm.
facilities and utilize them in other areas and resources. So we certainly have been beneficiaries, but then it does require us from a staffing perspective to be in full operations for 10 months in the skating environment, hockey and figure skating.
Running some business, run into some ancillary businesses. The casino though, like, do you sit on like their board of directors, or do you how involved do you have to get with the
Yeah,
casino?
we work closely with their management team because we certainly don't want to impede on their operations and vice versa. So really, there needs to be a synergy as we continue the longevity of both entities. We certainly develop a pacing, and we know when we have our monthly meetings or our pre-fair meeting, and we always want to make sure if we have a rental event on the grounds and we need to close a certain gate because we're expecting high traffic, we want to make sure we communicate that over to the Harrington Raceway and Casino.
But
We
you're
just
not over there
installed.
sampling the food, making sure everything's okay, and the slot machines
Yeah,
are paying
yeah.
out properly, and things
Yeah,
like
we
that.
under yeah, we understand for 10 days we're certainly a hindrance in their operations, as far as their rated players and folks coming
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that,
of course.
and it's funny they show up I just want to go to the casino. What's all this going on? It's like, well, the Delaware State Fair has been here for a century, so we certainly have we want to make sure we work closely together, and we do, and they're wonderful partners. We do have a few members of our board that serve on their board, naturally being the majority shareholder or stockholder.
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, there's that synergy as well.
That's really interesting. It's fascinating actually to do the thing. The other thing that always fascinates me about your fair is for being a marketing person, and you're a marketing person, is you have the most difficult job there is. I mean, because you're like not near a major market. Well, you're kind of near a major market, but not really near a major market. So, getting the people, yeah, I think you had 307,000 people last year come to that fair in I don't want to say the middle of nowhere, but it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of, sort of. And
Sure.
to get that many people to come out there is a great feat, and to be able to figure out what markets to hit and how to hit and to get them to go is an interesting exercise. So maybe how did you approach that when you first got there? Did you say, well, there's no people around here. How do I get them here?
Yeah, I mean the evolution of digital marketing certainly has changed the game, and for me from a marketing perspective, 17 years as the assistant general manager and director of marketing, I saw that evolution that you described, and even though we're a small state with less than a million people in the state, we very much entertain about 70% or so are Delawareans, about 20 or so from Maryland, so our neighbors basically to the west and south of us. So we always kind of, in a very strategic way, know what zip codes are hot zip codes. If you kind of look at a heat map that traditionally, most fairs or venues look at, and it's really it's interesting to see entertainment offerings. We see these music festivals come and go. We see the church events kind of come and go. But the longevity of keeping an event that's something that the community embraces and gets behind. We're certainly an event that's circled on the calendar for many families, being the last 10 days of July. And oftentimes folks are like, "Well, oh my gosh, it's so hot in July. Why don't you move into the fall dates?" I mean, that's a huge undertaking to move dates. I mean, forget the impact alone of trying to route a carnival around and would weight shows or any provider be available to you. But then it's how you interact with 4-H, how you interact with FFA, how you interact with schools or don't interact with schools, to public surface. I mean, it's not an easy thing to just, oh, we'll just go in September and October. I mean, you really need to know what other events are happening. Delaware, of course, we've got the Atlantic Ocean right there, so there's a lot of tourism in regards to beaches. And Ocean City, they're pumping a lot of off season type events. So there's a lot of competition. We just need to carve out our niche. Always stay true to our business model and integrate some new attempts here and there and try new things to keep it fresh. But same times always maintaining the integrity and the traditions that the fair is known to be.
So people coming from Delaware, the majority, as you said, and only a million people in the state. So is the focus getting them to come multiple times during the fair, and with the prices and things that have changed over the thing, what's the strategy for keeping it affordable for people to do that?
Sure. I think, working closely with your sponsors and promotional days, working closely with your carnival provider and Wade shows and Frank Sychek does an excellent job. Really looking, forward in regards to those discount opportunities, and it creates that sense of engagement, creates that, purchase your tickets ahead of time, and that rain insurance that we all kind of talk about, not the physical rain insurance, but just getting folks to purchase tickets ahead of time. We've done, excellent. Social media has really been a game changer. We've moved away from a lot of the traditional forms, not completely, but we've really lessened and decreased the amount of our investment, and moved into the digital performances, and social media with Facebook and Instagram and X
Yeah,
and Google and OTT, and just a whole myriad. I think you from a marketing strategy, you need to be able to do that and always see what's the newest technology. I've always been a stern believer of don't do too much, just do a few things real well. Sometimes when you do too much, you spread yourself too thin, and then it's hard to track to see what's working. So for us, working closely, understanding who our patrons are, buying patterns, discounts. Are discounts working? Are we seeing the redemption rate? Is the breakage there? What's the per cap spending when we start looking at initiatives and such? And we've got a really good model, but it's, to me, imperative. We've got to work, closely hand in hand with our carnival provider, as well as our other partners. But folks, it's tough. I mean, people are stretching dollars today, and
absolutely.
whether you call it, in inflationary type results, but it's things cost quite a bit. From the vendors concessionaire standpoint, certainly from our standpoint, our insurance next year, or our electric is going up, $70,000+ next year, and so things like that certainly impact your business decision. So I think folks are shopping for value. They're shopping for unique experiences, and over the last 5 or 6 years, it seems like a trend that this younger generation is looking for experiences that are unique and different. And then also you still have that cost savers, the discounts that folks are shopping. So that blended approach is certainly comes into play.
Do you have data on how many times people come on average? Is it one, or I mean, it's obviously higher than one, but is it above two, or is it? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we see between about 2.7 to 3.4. So we have a pretty
Really?
good repeat
Yeah,
customers. I mean,
that's
a lot of
great.
that data sometimes is somewhat skewed because you've got some of the concessions exhibitors built in there. So we really
Mhm.
try to me, looking at online purchases, and then we use eTix, the eTix system platform, for our concerts, gate credentials. So for us, we have great analytics, and they've tied into a system called Hive, which gives us email capabilities. So I can see, what has Ron Weber done in the last 10 years? Does he like country music? Does he like Christian music? Does he like rock?
Mhm.
How much money did he spend last year? So we really have a good record and analytics. So if we have a lot of country offerings, we can pair those country offerings together, do some discounted type programming. Or if an artist is coming back, we could reach out and say, hey, you went to the Brantley Gilbert concert back in 2017. Just as a thank you, here's a pre-sale opportunity. So I think just knowing your customers, knowing the analytics, to your question, knowing who are our repeat customers and visitors, and having that information help drive some of your marketing decisions.
Yeah, when I was first coming into the industry, there's a small county fair in South Carolina. I mean, middle of nowhere type place. But it always stuck with me because he said, look, because at that time a wristband or his gate admission was cheap, and relative to the other fairs and other things that were going on. And he said, look, I've got this tiny little town. I want people to come every day, basically. And in order to do that, I got to be at the right price point in order
Right.
for them to come. And they did. And it was compared to some of the other fairs of similar size or in populations, he did fantastic. And it always stuck with me that when, you don't have a lot of people, or maybe even if you do, it makes it easier, but you want them to come a lot, almost every day, kind of
Right.
be like, why is not everybody coming to my fair today? Again, you should be coming every single day, to a certain extent. So but it always stuck with me, and he was always successful doing that. But and on a much grander scale, you're kind of in the same boat because it's a small population relative to where you are.
Yeah, those pre-sales are really important for us in the sense that it does get people an opportunity. Plus, they're spending their dollars in May, June, as opposed to having less dollars to spend in July during our event. So, getting those pre-purchased opportunities and experiences for them to save a few dollars. They've got the tickets in hand, so it's more cash for them to have to spend when they come here on site. And of course, depending if your fare is on a percentage, your connection with the carnival and the percentage there and such, or concert tickets. So they have more more dollars to go through the actual live experience when they come on grounds.
Yeah, you talked before about digital and the changing. I mean, 15 years ago or whatever it was, we basically saw a newspaper drop off the map, and what I found, and I don't know if you found similar, but I'm curious. But cable has, for me this year especially, it's a kind of, I've almost stopped buying it almost completely. I've been doing streaming, and there's some new products out there where you can kind of buy specific channels, which work well if you want to target a younger demographic. But I don't know if you've seen similar, but I've cut my cable buying down considerably. I mean, really considerably.
Yeah, it's same here, same here. And unless you have something that's really specific, and this goes back a few years, but we had a cooking demo on the main stage. We had Paula Dean at the time. So let's say we had a cooking cooking person this year. I mean, buying specifically the Food Network, and there are some advantages there, but yeah, just the broad sports channels and news channels, and we just don't see that because our dollars can really infiltrate other areas much better. And then the analytics associated with click-throughs and impressions, and then ultimately the purchase. And that's the beauty of the Hive system through Etix and Rockhouse, their marketing component for Etix, is we can track that cradle to grave experience. And so where the click-through links coming in, and what did Ron Weber purchase, what link did he click through, and what did that end value, what beyond the shopping cart, what did the end purchase and the experience look like. So once again, we can really look at who are higher visitors, and the per cap really comes into play.
Or even like I find it fascinating with like an email blast, even what parts of the email they click on. Like this one was effective. This one about whatever the rides was great. This one about the food was not so much. This one, and you can adjust, and do your thing. But with streaming, that component, now that you're able to buy some specific stations, and obviously when you're buying digital, you're getting people, so it really doesn't matter where they are. But with kids, you can't really target kids with digital, but if you can buy certain networks now, if you can buy Nickelodeon or buy certain things, which you're able to do, it really helps. Because that used to be an effective thing, at least for me, to buy. But and you're looking at the cable penetration rates too. You see it going south, below 50% now. You're like, it's a little scary. Why am I buying that? It's all digital. But I think the thing we do have to do, Danny, and this may be your project for you, is when we use the word digital, it's this all-encompassing thing that means everything. When we're buying advertising or doing something else, say, well, our digital is this, but there's so many components to that digital.
Sure.
It's like weird. It's like we need a vocabulary to be able to explain it, to a certain extent. But we just say digital, and it means everything, I guess. But
right.
You have audio streaming, you have digital streaming, you have email blasts, you have display ads, you have all kinds of things. But not to mention, advertising on social media, TikTok or whatever is going on, and we just kind of use this one all-encompassing term for it. But it's so much more than that.
Absolutely. I mean, even the simple term of a billboard is no longer just a billboard. It's no longer a static image, because you can buy into these, digital. Let's rotate this ad X amount of times, per week for 4 weeks, and then it swaps out. And then, when there's available inventory, you can buy into it, and you no longer have to pay that whole production expense of them taking 4 or 5 hours to slap vinyl up on this large board.
Mm-hmm.
You get into these rotating opportunities. So yeah, I mean, the other thing that, folks, and I just would encourage other fairs is really look at your production value. It's, our cameras, our smartphones are getting better, quality is getting better, HD, but really the integration of video versus static photos, and just creating a high level of FOMO, that the fear of missing out. And for us, we want to portray, and we really want to put the moving component so people can see, wow, I want my kid smiling, I want my kid coming down the giant slide, or I want my kid riding the Ferris wheel, or I want to be at that concert, or I want to feel, I want to eat that funnel cake, or cotton candy. So those the moving elements, I think, tell a great story, and good audio. So the quality of the production is coming in almost equally as important as the deliverable, because if you have a really bad picture, then it doesn't create that emotional value where it connects to to the viewer to say, hey, I want that. I don't want to miss out on that amazing opportunity of going to the Delaware State Fair.
Having such a good time, and hence your studios and your
Yeah,
you do daily
you got to
broadcast
step up your game. Yeah, and the
you do
internet,
daily broadcast
Wi-Fi.
during the fair.
Yeah, I mean, mobile apps. I mean, all of it is amenities, and it's hard because we're all in the fair industry trying to deal with we're smaller staff, smaller budgets. We're not the Disneys of the world. We're not the as far as all the large amusement parks. So we're having to do more with less, and try to do it in a smart way, and in a strategic way. So it's our staff here is just amazing to work with. We got some very talented individuals, but it's also partners like ETIX, Rock House, Weight Shows, and really bringing all of your assets together to put together a good plan.
See where it's at. Yeah, you mentioned the fair apps. That's one thing I haven't seen. I mean, there might be out there. I don't know, because I don't know everything, but at least the early ones, I've never seen a really good
Mm-hmm.
app for a lot of fair. I mean, some of them are okay and they give you some things, but I've seen some great concert ones that I've been to that where you can like plan your day and do some things. But I haven't seen a great one for fairs yet. That might be an opportunity, or maybe there's one out
like
there.
Your Olympas of the world, those like doing large music festivals, and we invested in that's a sizable investment. And not to call them out, they do a great product. We're fortunate once again to partner with ETIX, that has the Rock House marketing arm, and they're helping us build. They're helping us to build a mobile application. Now it's like for as part of our agreement, essentially for free as part of our services offered by them. And folks would be like, man, why aren't they charging you? And you think about it, we're going to sell more tickets, so naturally they're going to make more money on the back end on the percentage side. But yeah, to me, those mobile apps, it's just another tool, another resource, not to put all of your eggs into one particular basket. This year, what we're really focusing on is weather notification, and we're developing a system. And in the past, that's probably been one of our weaknesses. Is when do you sound the alarm for for everyone to take cover? Watching the weather, devising a plan that ensures the safety and welfare of not only your patrons and guests, but certainly equally as important as your volunteers, your staff. Folks are out in the fields parking cars, to folks selling tickets at the ticket booths, to backstage where you got to meet with artist management, to Carnival and the hundred of employees that Frank would have deployed at any given time. So weather notification certainly becomes a pretty important feature that we're focusing on this year. And then using that mobile app and using the SMS, the text messaging, using Facebook and Instagram and X to make sure that those are delivering certain messages when we need to get info out quickly, and that whole digital component.
Yeah, you kind of ruined because I was planning on putting out a weather app but mine just said it was sunny every day. But you raised some good points about the safety and things like that. But,
yeah, my wife, we were headed to a softball game, and she was kind enough to drive. And when we get closer to fair time, I think every fair employee does this. You start sleeping, eating, and just you're consumed with the planning of the event. And for me, public safety and just the protection of our patrons and guests and employees is one of my highest priorities. So I was looking at developing a system. We came up with a simple 5-code system, and like code 5, everything's good. It's sunny outside. Life is good. Code 4 is, we've been alerted by DEMA, our emergency folks here that there could be a weather event later in the afternoon. And then code 3, hey, there's something out there about 2 hours away. Let's start thinking and having the conversations of getting folks queued up. Kind of a code 2 is, hey, it's 30 minutes out. Let's start bringing people out in the fields. Let's start notifying our customers. And then code 1 is about 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and seek cover. And that's where we use our on-site paging. It's called a VEN system, variable emergency notification system. So just devising that plan, making sure everyone is in the line of communication. And that's all I can stress is whether it's top down, down up, or even left to right, we want to make sure that everyone's involved in understanding what's the next steps.
Yeah, that you raise, and moving on from weather, the thing that's on a lot of people's mind is safety and the youth policies and things that are going on. What's been your experience lately with that? I mean, you're in a rural area, by and large, you might not get it quite as hard as someplace that might be in a more urban environment, but you're it's on the top of everybody's mind. What things have you done or heard from others to implement trying to keep that people safe and kids from running? It's mostly youth running around doing crazy things, but
I think COVID presented all of us with some crazy challenges that we had to kind of adopt. We dipped our toes in the first step, and last year was the first year we implemented weapons detector as the walkthrough experience. We had a contractor come in, and we learned a lot from that experience. So essentially, we're scanning for weapons. That would be the guns, and then we are permitting, just because we're a rural kind of agricultural community, pocket knives with blades, under 2.5 inches. They're permitted in, because we have a lot of exhibitors and such that they use that to cut rope, and it's just something that you keep in your pocket. The biggest thing for us was the guns, and just there's a casino on site, so there's already a state mandate that requires that anyone with a concealed carry permit, they're not even permitted to bring and carry on the property, on the grounds of a casino. So we are more or less just reinforcing that. But it really, we got a lot of good feedback from parents and mothers specifically of saying, hey, thank you. I feel safer. And unfortunately, there was an incident in northern Delaware just recently where there was some gunfire. Yeah, and the carnival closed up earlier, and it was one of the shopping mall type setups. And we were actually mentioned in the article as far as the Delaware State Fair has taken these steps, and so we were kind of ahead of the curve, and we were quoted more in a positive sense.
That's great.
We've not moved into minors must be accompanied by adults, and
you haven't. You're one of the few, I guess. You've been fortunate. That's great.
And that's hard. I mean, we've been very knocking on wood here. That we've been fortunate. Last year, we've really stepped up our state police presence, and security, and so we have more folks kind of roaming through, specifically the carnival areas. But we have so many exhibitors camping on site, camping on the fairgrounds proper. It'd be very hard for us to have those minors accompanied, and because they're here on the grounds already. So it would be hard for us to delineate who's who and such. So it's something I'm not saying that we would not consider, but we're going to try year 2 of this stepped up approach, and just see if a constant and ongoing presence and trying to diffuse the possibilities ahead of time. But we're learning, and we're observing. We're seeing all the articles. We're seeing all the news reports. IAFE does a great job. When unfortunately, when there's an incident, or if there's something that comes out that's newsworthy, of putting that out there. It seems like there's been a decline, but COVID I don't know if there's this just pent up this energy, and these kids just went crazy once they were able to do so. And I'm hoping things start to calm down.
Fairs and carnivals both are struggling. Like the mall one you mentioned, and I don't know what steps were taken up there, but I know some guys tried it. They have a big police presence and dogs and unaccompanied minors, and then even the parents have to take some responsibility, but they'll have an unaccompanied minor policy. And I was talking to one carnival owner. He said the parent would bring them there, and then they'll leave and just leave the kid there, so they kind of circumvent the unaccompanied minors policy. But it's a shame, because it ruins it for everyone when they to have these incidents or do whatever they do. It doesn't even have to be, something real tragic like a shooting. You could just be running around and, causing problems. But,
Or just yelling, a gun or fire and a large crowd can just wreak havoc. And then next thing you know, and that's the pros and cons of social media. False information gets in there, and then the last thing you ever want is just the hint of that your carnival or your fairgrounds are not a safe place for families, because that's where our customers are we're built on, families coming to the Delaware State Fair. And for me, that would be just something that would be devastating if that type, and social media just travels so quickly, word of mouth travels so quickly. That's we talk about the benefits of advertising and digital advertising and social media, but then that's the flip side, is just incorrect information, just developing legs and running. So really controlling that narrative is pretty important.
Yeah, controlling the narrative is hard. But, a lot of fairs, it's interesting. I thought about this, 10, 15 years ago. It was the newspaper. People used to be scared of a newspaper article. But then I started thinking, the fair has as many emails as they had subscribers. I was at one fair thinking about it. I'm like, we could put a message out directly to the person.
Yeah.
It has more recipients than the newspaper has subscribers.
Yeah.
We're pretty powerful as far as being able to get a message out too. So, it's a powerful entity, because generally a fair is the single largest gathering of people in that area. It's a a powerful entity.
And that's the balance of when you start cutting your marketing and advertising budget. Is, they say, if money doesn't drive the editorial arm of the newspaper. Well, it does, and it's almost that pay to play kind of situation.
Yeah.
Where state news, if or whatever newspaper entity or traditional, if you're spending dollars with them, naturally you get their attention a little bit more. And but really getting to know your reporters and getting to know who typically is the entertainment reporter or who's in charge of food, and just integrating them in within your communications to keep them in the know. And then that just helps. You've got someone on speed dial, and you can reach out to them, and that's all part of that strategy, that blended approach, like you said, with emails. Our own social media channels with 98,000+, almost 100,000 on followers on Facebook. But that's, emails to me, any venue, any fair should be controlling email addresses as much as possible, because you own that information, that data. Facebook can go away tomorrow. TikTok,
That's
in
exactly
a year might go away. All that's gone. Your platform of reaching out to those folks are gone. So
it's
SMS is worth, it's worth the investment. And of course, email. To your earlier point, is plays a viable, important mention.
You got me on that. I preach that all the time. Like, you don't own Facebook. They can decide we're going to shut it tomorrow, and then all that work you did to get all those things, it doesn't exist there anymore. Whereas your website and your email address, those are yours. So driving people, because people say, "Oh, we use Facebook." We drive them to our Facebook page. Drive them to your website. At least you own your website. That's I preaching to the choir. That's so important, I think, Dan. It's
absolutely.
So, we say since COVID, we're talking so much about marketing, entertainment-wise, have you seen a lot of change in grounds? I know obviously the animal acts have almost completely disappeared. There are very, very few left anymore that do things. What do you think about, what's being offered? Is there a lot less, or do you find it hard, challenging to get the right free acts, ground acts anymore?
Yeah, I noticed when we go out to the conventions, to IFE specifically, is the real good, excellent, high produced, good quality, kind of affordable books. You're booking 2-3 years out on some of them. There seems to be fewer and fewer. I think the dog acts are probably, when you get into animals, that you don't get into a whole lot of trouble with folks that are very passionate animal rights activists. And it's for us, the timed shows where it's at a set location, it gets harder and harder because there's more of a demand for sponsors and vendors and concessionaires. So we've really moved into more strolling and more roaming entertainment, that we can strategically place them in areas at certain times of day. You got to mind how much time and the heat and such, but really strategically moving those, and it gives us a lot more flexibility. Plus, they're out there a little bit more frequent, and the more you have, the more you can rotate. So we've
I think
been
so.
we've been very strategic as far as our buys. We still have the hourly, like the racing pigs. We've got a amazing circus with the Cronus
He
family.
does a great job. What a great production
Yeah,
dude.
great presentation, and he can present something that's a circus experience without animals if you are concerned,
Yeah.
with that aspect. But then he can integrate the carnivals, dogs, the racing pigs. So those elements. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder because there's such a demand of people
Yeah, there
wanting
used to
to
be
be part of the
Miami
fair.
Tiger Act. I know one guy personally. I used to book him quite often, and COVID just didn't go back on the road. I even tried to help him out one year. Like I gave him 10, 12 weeks of work, and he couldn't get it back. You know, there's he's not the only
Yeah,
one. There's quite a few that just not there anymore. You know, some of
yeah,
those
you're
more
having that. Yeah,
spectacular things.
yeah, and like okay, so I've noticed a few folks that we've done work with, like a magician and such. They took their stage show and they turned it into a roaming show because it just seemed like more
Huh?
fairs were interested in that type of presentation.
Really?
So it certainly makes their days a little bit longer because now it's stretched out, and you'll see in their contract it's got to be within a 5 hour window or 6 hour window, and 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then a break, and that when it comes down to it, all the entertainers have been extremely accommodating to us. If there's a special needs, or you only get 3 per day, and they'll throw in an extra one if you ask, hey, I got a special event, the governor's coming in. Yeah, they're so great to work with, and that's what I
They
love
are.
about the fair industry is it's about a relationship. It's about a give and take. It's I can call you up and say, hey, what are you guys doing for kids on the spectrum? What are you doing for grounds entertainment? Have you booked this? And I think everyone has 5 or 6 fairs that you just know the marketing director or the entertainment director or the general manager or whomever, and you can just reach out and just bounce ideas. And that's an amazing resource to be able to reach out and have friends throughout the U.S. to bounce those ideas off of.
Yeah, with the podcast, we're kind of getting started interviewing different people.
Yeah,
But I think eventually I would like to maybe pull in some roundtables and do, every couple months do something on marketing or something like that, and have 4 or
sure.
5 of you guys that are working on things right now and bounce some ideas off. I think it'd be good for the industry and good for everything.
Yeah, and that's why
Um,
fairs have to be going to the conventions because the networking opportunities.
yeah,
COVID is behind us. I mean, it still pops up here and there, but you know, we've learned how to live with it. I will have to say, and I will have to give the Delaware State Fair a plug, along with Frank Sychek and the weight shows. I want to say, both Frank and the Delaware State Fair truly helped the fair industry kind of get through an early difficult time with COVID, as far as developing procedures and policies. Frank and I did a video of just how to integrate the carnival and the touched areas and the how do people purchase tickets and using contactless type technologies. And that video was watched hundreds of thousands of times. And Frank was he's somewhat of the Tom Cruise of the carnival industry, as folks who just hey, really appreciate what you did. And
you're doing that.
I mean, he put a lot at risk for helping us, and we were the first state fair that kind of was operating in 2020. We
Yeah,
did
I
not
was I was just going to
cancel our
get into that because you say
yeah
you're 105 years. You're one of the few fairs that could say they had a continuous run. Some
yeah
stopped for the war, World War II, or something like that, but you ran all the way
right
through.
right
But running in 2020, when you put yourself back in that time, was just an unbelievable. It was a risk to a certain extent, but it was also great in a lot of ways because your people appreciate it so much. The people at the Delaware State Fair, but um, that was quite the challenge, and to put that together. If you want to
yeah
talk a
the
little bit
stress,
about
the stress that that staff and all our volunteers, it was difficult times because the
it
biggest thing
was.
was the unknown factor.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 foot face coverings. I mean, all of the narratives and the touch points that we had to deal with. We're very fortunate to have an amazing Delaware public health division to work with, and having many of our buildings kind of an open air setup where air was blowing through. It wasn't actually closed building, helped us. And for us, our top priority was giving the kids and the livestock world an opportunity to exhibit their animals. And then secondly is just help kind of get us back to returning some level of normalcy, and
Mm-hmm.
people just wanting to come out. And we didn't have concerts that year, but man, we had other great entertainment. And and Roberto the Magnificent, Rob out of Washington. He's got a whole team of folks. He drove from Washington all the way to Harrington, Delaware, so coast to coast. And when he got here, he just was like, "I am so appreciative. This was literally the one event that didn't cancel, and he just needed to feed his family and just
Yeah.
needed money." And he was kind of tearing up, but just saying, I miss the smell of the fairs and the sound of the fairs and the LED lights and the carnival. And he missed it so much. Until things are taken away, you never realize, what it really means to you. And man, our staff, kudos. And it was a huge undertaking, and so many fairs after that. I must have done about probably over 50 presentations on how we did, and we shared our plan with IAFE. And I know it was we had several fairs come out and visit us, and it was something to be proud of. I think it's something that I can always take a step back, and if there's one year that was the most challenging, 2020 was challenge for so many folks. But for us to be able to do it and put a fair on, I mean, high five, and all of our staff members
Beyond
here.
that, I mean, I just am so I admired you guys so much for doing that. It was just an incredible thing, and really to be a leader like that is always risk associated with it, because it's
Sure, and we just don't know.
downside.
Yeah, the
A lot
unknowns.
of
And
downside.
yeah, Frank, I mean, without him, it never would have presented quite the right way. So for him and his sacrifice, and for him stepping up for me, for the whole carnival industry, I feel it really gave a footprint. And then we watched the statistics, and there was no
There's no,
no
yeah,
increase, and everyone was worried you're going to kill. It never happened. And
it never happened. And I had written an article because to me that got in my mind with Florida, because the Florida State Fair happened, and Disney closed just after that.
yeah,
And then the Florida Strawberry Festival happened, both in Hillsborough County. You're talking 1 million people were at these two events. No mitigation strategy. I mean, you guys had all the strategies and all the wipe downs and all the stuff. They had nothing. Just a regular fair. Boom, 900,000 people plus. I looked at the health data from Hillsborough County, because I said there must be some giant spike, right? Because they had cases then, they had things going on in retrospect, but there was no spike after 1 million people. And I was thinking, outside it must be pretty safe to be outside. It must not spread very well outside doing the things, because that was my first real impression. Was I said, how can 1 million people gather like that, and not be any huge aftermath? And you guys, and when you watch the video that you guys talk about, I know Frank had special sprays. They were spraying down the lap bars, and some of the things seemed silly at the time, but everybody's doing everything they could to make sure it was as safe, quote unquote, as possible. And you guys really led the way. And you mentioned Frank Wade shows. In the end, he trucked an entire carnival from Florida to Delaware.
Yep.
And then everything else canceled, because and he probably could have, or probably should have, from a business standpoint, not done the Delaware State Fair, because it's insane
absolutely.
the cost of trucking up there for one event and then trucking back home. But he did it. He did it. He and like you say, maybe it was for the industry, maybe he did it, for whatever reason to be the first. But you're right, it was a big sacrifice for them to do.
And like I said earlier, the unknown factor was the hardest thing because someone would ask the question and just don't know. I mean, is 6 foot enough distance? Is contactless a truly viable thing? Do you need to spray thing, and just all the questions? And of course, now we kind of have all the answers to those elements. But for me, and even for Frank, we realized, hey, maybe we don't need as many carnival rides. People enjoyed having the aisleway spaced out a little bit more, opening up more amenities, more shading. So, for us, it taught us a lesson that, we still adopt certain strategic and certain layouts or certain strategies and layouts now. And we're operating with less carnival rides, but this laid out in strategic ways. So it was a huge lesson learned for us, and it's helped us move forward. And it gets into the grounds entertainment and how livestock and split shows, and it opened up, and it's those sacred cows that you've always had in most events, that you can't do that, or you have to have this, it has to be done this way. we broke the mold because it was COVID a year, but then we realized, well, you can do it. You don't
Can do.
you don't need to do X, Y, Z and that way. And man, it taught us so much. So operationally, doing an operations and a fair and a carnival at that time, it was so beneficial. Yeah, I know he took a financial hit. We took a financial hit. But yeah, it really learned out, from a longevity and long term planning perspective. It was a huge win for us.
And there was pressure. I mean, there were people that were saying you were, gonna kill every. I mean, even people in the fair industry. It's
Yeah,
funny because it is such a big industry, and so usually you're in your own little silo. Yeah, you go to the conventions, but
yeah,
you operate. If I'm in New York, I'm in New York. I'm in New York Fair or whatever. And
yeah,
I had fairs operating in Florida, wide open, completely going
yeah,
and doing things, or South Carolina. And then I talked to, I'd have a client, maybe I was doing advertising or something for a fair in New York, and they're like, "Do you think we're going to open this year?" I was like, "Well, why wouldn't you?" And they're like,
yeah.
well, because of COVID. And I was like, "Well, there's hundreds of events operating all over the South and I don't think that COVID acts differently between the South and the North, but it was like two
Right.
different worlds. It was like two completely
Yeah,
different worlds because they were scared to death in New York, especially. I remember, and some of the northern places, they didn't want to do anything, and it took them 2 years, man. In California, 2 years to open. Beyond where some of the ones, South Carolina and other places, they were open, the next year basically after the first year. So, sharing of that data, like you're
yeah,
saying, is important. I'm not sure it really got through in all the ways, or maybe because of politics or other things that were there. But data wise, you had events that were running
yep,
safely, for a
right.
year before some of the other ones opened. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what
there's
your
a couple of
observation.
fair managers out there, and I'll keep their names kind of to just to myself. But I
I'll
mean,
flash
in,
them
in
up on
their
the screen right now.
in their messaging, it was like, that we're not going to do our fair because it's not how we would want it to present X fair, and if we can't be this way like we've always have been, we don't want to do a fair, and we hold your safety and the utmost highest of priorities, and that type of messaging, and whoever's going to do an event, they're not, and it just got into this. Okay, let's be careful because our Department of Health was excellent to work with, and they were working off of data. And we were working closely with the governor's office. So we're a small state. We're able to do that. I mean, our governor's
Yeah,
here almost all 10 days. And so we can navigate our systems sometimes a heck of a lot more efficiently than these larger fairs. Let's say the state of New York. I mean, the politics of just getting through. I couldn't even begin to understand just being such a small
where it
state.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
so
the
we're
other,
we're
the
very
other thing,
fortunate. Those
the
partners
other
are
thing it
key.
really brought to mind for me, or made me observe, is the divide. It's not a divide, but the difference in some of these, and not so much you were I would call a professional fair where you have a paid staff and that thing, but some of these volunteer fairs and the food concessionaires and the carnivals, because you had, and I get it. They said, for the safety of our people, we're not going to run, or because of this, we're not going to run. But the carnivals and the food vendors, they had to work. They didn't have the opportunity because it's not a hobby for them. I say hobby.
Right.
They're not volunteer fair board that runs. And there's a difference when it's you're feeding your family or making a living like that,
Sure.
and running a nonprofit organization where if you don't run it, it'll be bad and I'll be sad, but it's not affecting anything.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of some of the, because some of the vendors would say, I don't understand why they're not running, and they were dependent upon them for a living, so
Sure.
that really came to, I don't know what conclusion to draw from that, but it did to me, make me think a little bit about, like, you have a professional class of people that needed to work, and maybe some of the fairs, it was, and I say hobby, and I don't mean it derisively in any way, but they didn't need to do it in order to eat, basically, is what I'm saying.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And we received that exact messaging, Ron, and they were just so appreciative that we had, and like I said, the grounds entertainment. It's every event they lost 80 to 90
Yep.
dates out there, and that, I mean, yeah, we
Just a little bit of work was big.
Yeah, absolutely. And just feeling normal. I think from just from a mindset and public health and mental health is, just feeling normal was and that's why we all fair industry across the board. If you didn't have an unbelievable 2021, then something was going wrong. And you almost have to throw out 2021 because the numbers are just they were off the charts in almost every category across the board. So it's great to say that's the potential, but that pent up demand that folks, they just wanted to go out and really let loose. It was, yeah, 21 was unbelievable.
It also gave you an opportunity to introduce the fair to people that hadn't been there in a long time too, or
Yeah,
maybe hadn't
yeah,
come.
absolutely.
That's what I looked at a little bit, and a lot of them stayed. Because we haven't like gone back to 2019 levels. We're a little bit above. 2019 levels. We're a little bit above that. So I think we introduced some people to the industry that
Yeah,
maybe otherwise weren't coming or hadn't thought about it as a fair or whatever else. It's
sure.
opportunity.
Excellent point. Yep.
What we've got about 10 minutes left, but how do you feel about you mentioned concerts, but how is that, the booking of that stuff right now, and pricing and just getting the right acts and being able to afford, or is it worth it? In a lot of ways, a lot of fairs are cutting back on their entertainment, but you guys seem to maintain a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, no, we're I'm not, doubling down by any means, but we found grandstand entertainment, a hard ticket is an important aspect to our business model. It's something that we feel brings the folks to our venue that may not otherwise come, to your earlier point. And when they're here, it's up for us to get them to ride the rides, eat the food, and then you get the benefits of getting gate admission, benefits of getting a percentage off the carnival event, percentage off of the food. And then they get to know your venue. They need to they get to know your event itself. So, for us, I mean, the challenges is, as we're seeing all these expenses going up, I mean, for tours to tour, we're just seeing the price of the big entertainers just reaching numbers, and we're seeing numbers for artists that it just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. And they're putting numbers out there, and they're growing these artists way too fast, where we can get an artist for $10,000-$20,000. Next thing you know, they're 200, 300, $350,000. And you look at total tickets sold, and you don't see the Polestar reporting. And that's why it's really important for fairs. And I know some of the artists are writing in their contracts, you can't submit your information to outside venues or outside
Yeah.
documents and such. But that reporting information is important for us as we make these ticketing decisions. Many of these artists are building their careers off of social media, so they're not selling hard tickets. So is the social media click-throughs, impressions, and followers equate to people buying a $40 or $50 concert ticket? We're testing that model this year, where we have two YouTubers that they grew their career on YouTube. So we're testing that model. When we're a smaller area, somewhat rural, we're seeing if that model works for us. So yeah, we're all in, certainly on the grandstand entertainment. We just spent north of $500,000 on 35 large fans that help keep our customers comfortable in the grandstand in the late part of July, when it's 95 degrees and heat index sometimes upwards to 100. But yeah, it's an important business model for us. And then beer sales and all the ancillary benefits that we drive.
Yeah, it's getting tough. It's getting tough for a lot of people to be able to afford. Anyway, I'm shocked sometimes. Like, once in a while I'll quote an act. I can't believe what they charge, and I can't figure out, more importantly, how to make money with it. That's the hard part. Is like, how the
Exactly. Yeah, and you definitely test the elasticity of their spending. We had an artist, we paid $125,000 last year, and then this year, if I wanted to book that same artist, that person is north of $750,000.
What?
So to say 125 goes to 750 plus, because some of the festivals are paying more than that. It's mind blown. And of course, your fans are like, yeah, I want Taylor Swift, and I want Lainey Wilson and Hardy and Tyler Childers and all these big artists that are just outside our realm of possibility from a contract and ticket pricing perspective.
And is that because of the venues or the music festivals, or what's driving it so strong?
Festivals. I truly feel. I mean, the
Festivals.
dollars that festivals are paying, because
Yeah.
they're just they're the benefits that they're deriving is they can spend $6-7 million on a 2 or 3 day lineup, but then the benefits of just bulk ticketing and they get 100%. So, I mean, each venue has to build their pricing structure and contractual obligations.
Yeah.
On what makes the most sense for them. For us, we build in a back end percentage, so there's some benefits of them participating and giving us marketing materials and giving us shout outs and tying us in with their media and social media. So yeah, those for us that's our workable business model. But having friends and some family members in the festival arena, you just hear some of the prices and just see the structures, and it's unreal. I get diesel fuels going up. I get less tractor trailers and yes buses on tours. But man, and a lot more fly dates. But it's getting tough out there, and there's more venues and supply and demand. There's more venues than there are good solid artists. So we have to strive and work harder to get 10 days of entertainment booked, as opposed to a venue that's booking maybe for the whole summer and has 3 to 4 months to work off of.
Yeah, you get into, like you were saying before, you have those artists where they're going to draw, and that
Right.
pool's getting kind of smaller and smaller. And then you got all these acts that you have no idea what they're going to draw,
Yeah.
what you do, or
Yeah.
what
If anyone's
it is.
crystal ball's working, let me know, because
And it's not like the old days where you could book somebody, a couple bucks or whatever. They're just starting out. And you take a chance, but now they're like, oh, 60,000 for somebody you never heard of. It's a big number. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, there's so many hands in the pot. I mean, you've got artist management, then you got venue management, then you've got. I mean, there's just so many folks that are looking to take a piece, and it's getting harder and harder. And to me, it's a relationship, very much like our carnival relationship, very much like our concessionaires and food vendors. We need to market the fair to bring people there to buy the food. They need to do a stellar job having great foods and develop new offerings. We need to market those new offerings. So it's a give and take. It's an ebb and flow. So it's very much about networking, and that's once again the beauty of fairs is we're all in this together. When we succeed, our concessionaires succeed, Carnival succeeds, Grandstand succeeds, even the casino succeeds. So it's a win-win, definitely.
Yeah. So we got 2 minutes left. Is there anything we haven't covered, or anything you want to mention that you haven't mentioned?
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoy when fairs come to visit us, and when we try to go out and visit fairs as well. And I've developed a great group of friends throughout the fair industry, and where you bounce ideas. And I can't stress the importance of someone listening to the podcast that may be in the fair industry, or starting out, or is kind of a seasoned veteran, is be open to new ideas. You need to see what fits best in your model. For us, I mean, Bill had his thoughts and ideas, and has done a phenomenal job building the fair. This Generation X and Gen Y, and trying to figure out what buying patterns and strategies make sense to them. Is this something that we're constantly evolving and doing things the way we used to do them 20 years from now? And like we've talked about in this podcast alone, is just not something, unfortunately, we can continue to do. So that's where networking, bouncing ideas, going to conventions, making phone calls, listening to podcasts, and just having conversations with your partners. Because if you're not doing what you can to be successful, you want to motivate them as well. And it's a give and take. And this fair industry is just a great industry to be in, and thoroughly enjoy just working with all of the folks, the concessionaires, the livestock partners and sponsors. It takes a lot. As I always tell staff, it truly takes a village to put this thing on, called the Delaware State Fair. And
Right.
we have a lot to be proud about, and it's due to great partners and folks that love the last 10 days of July and spending 10 days with us.
That's an awesome thing, and thank you so much for all the input. You're always super informative. Things going on in the industry, and hopefully we can do some marketing or some things in the podcast, and add some. I think a lot of people have a lot to add.
Yeah, we got to
Well,
constantly be learning. So, yep. But thanks for the opportunity, Ron, and I appreciate the podcast
thank
and
you. You
everything that
see
you
Bill
do.
in the
Yeah.
call, come said hi. Is he still hanging around?
Who's that?
Bill the Monday, is he still around a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit?
yeah. He's on our board. Like I said, we have a 78
Good.
member board of directors, and just saw him last night at we had a board meeting, and
Tell him I asked about
it's
him, said hi.
absolutely, no, without a doubt, definitely.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. I love that studio. I can't wait to go see it in person. Very nice.
Yeah, yeah. You're always welcome. Come on in. We'll do a podcast roundtable right here
We'll
on
run right
site.
from there. You got it,
Yep,
man. Thanks so
here at
much,
the
Danny.
Dollar City
Appreciate it.
Fair.
The best,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks, you too. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.